Okay? The midterm may have more JavaScript. Any other question on the quiz and the midterm? Okay, so it's going to be time for you to start the term project. You should all be getting accounts on the database server. In fact, I was told about 1 hour ago that you already have accounts, but when I went to test it, whether you had accounts with the default password that they gave, the default password that they give is the default password that you are apparently going to get is going to be _fall16_0.
That's not showing the underscore.
Weird.
Here.
Should look over there. Okay. But for some reason it's not working. Because I'm supposed to go in here, csdb.brockport.edu/phpMyAdmin, and I should be able to do js, what is it?
3.
3_fall16_0. And it says cannot log in.
I used to get that all the time.
But he said, I just went through the databases and the class should be all set. But I did send him an email saying, I tried this and it wouldn't let me in. Okay? The person who is apparently responsible for this is Kevin Colagio. Does anyone know that? Know that person?
He had to fix mine for database about 4 or 5 times.
Well, because you're going to run into trouble later probably. Unless you want to set up your own MySQL server, which I believe you can do, it's free. And you've got to contact KCOLAGIO@brockport.edu. Okay? She's going to be really mad. So maybe we'll designate someone. Jody's already spoken with him, knows him, so maybe she's the one who should say.
Because he fixed mine 5 times because it didn't work last year.
Okay, so maybe you can talk to him again and say, I can't log in again. Okay,
Just say you're an idiot.
He can't say that, it's his job. But
I don't have the email yet that says it. I just checked mine. I don't mind asking him.
Nope. But I can log in with my password, which so I don't know. That's weird. Once you are in there, you're going to have to set it up. Anyway, that's the password. Everyone got that? Mm-hmm. And then you're going to change it, of course, to have your own. All right. So let's do a little more PHP. Suppose we do insert new course from our original HTML file. You know what? I actually don't have the code for it, but okay, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to do, suppose we do retrieve all assignments. See, we did insert new teacher. Insert new course isn't very different. You've got to follow the same pattern. Retrieve all assignments is another piece of functionality where we are going to use a select query. Now, how do we do that? Let's look at retrieveallassignments.php. Retrieveallassignments.php. This is weird. I'm going to do it that way. So we have a comment at the top. And after the comment, we have open PHP. And we go to the bottom and we have end PHP. We require the database configuration file, remember that? And we require this other file. But the main thing we do is execute this function get all teaching assignments, right? So what does get all teaching assignments do? Get all teaching assignments first executes the function connect and select database or connect and select DB with these parameters. And where do these parameters come from?
We set them up earlier.
What? That was in the teachcn file, which contains the database configuration information. Such as the database server you're going to, which is going to be csdb.brockport.edu. The database username, which is going to be jhas3, whatever her password is that she changes it to from fall16_0, and whatever her database is that she will see that Kevin will give her when hopefully he sets up her account properly. Okay? Does everyone get that? Now, after that, let's look at what you're doing over here. We are setting up an SQL statement. This is some SQL code that we are going to execute against the database. And this SQL statement says, select last name, first name, discipline, course title, from teacher, course, teaching assignment, where teaching assignment.course ID equals course.course ID and teaching assignment.teacher ID equals teacher.teacher ID. Now, where did this select statement come from? It is something that I, as the programmer, I figured out that that was the SQL statement that I needed to use in order to retrieve all information about which teacher is teaching which course from my database, right? So I have a teacher table, I have a course table, and I have a teaching assignment table which keeps track of which teacher is assigned to which course. That's standard database stuff. Okay? And I am joining all of them together, all three together, like teaching assignment.course ID equals course.course ID. That joins teaching assignment with course ID. And teaching assignment.teacher ID equals teacher.teacher ID. That joins teaching assignment with teacher, right? So with all these joins, I am basically getting an SQL query constructed. And now I am going to use the MySQL query built-in function to execute this SQL statement. Okay? And I'm going to get a result. Okay? And now I say that if the result is not defined, if not result, then I echo that for some reason I couldn't go to the database and execute my query, which is possible because, for example, the database server might be down, right? So nothing happens, and then I exit this PHP code. But if I don't exit that PHP code, then I come over here. And now, look at what I'm doing. Now this is what you need to look at carefully. What this is doing is showing how you process the results of a select statement. The manner in which you process the results of an insert or an update or a delete statement, we have already seen. Insert teacher, remember where we constructed the insert query from the stuff that the user sent us? Okay, we constructed that, and then after we executed the query, that was it. If we got a successful result, we simply sent a message, and then we wrote HTML code in this function to display that message on an HTML file, right? That was simple. Because insert, update, and delete queries, they either succeed or they don't, right? And if they succeed, you just display a message saying, yeah. Otherwise, you display a message saying something like that. Right? Now, with a select query, it's not quite so simple, is it? With a select query, we get a number of results back. We get a number of rows back, right? So we've got to display the results of those rows in a, what's the most natural thing to use to display the results of a select query in an HTML file? What should we use?
Table.
A table. So we've got to create a table. But the challenge is we've got to create the table programmatically. Instead of writing HTML code ourselves by hand, we've got to have our PHP write the code, which is challenging. Okay? So, the first thing that we do is call the method MySQL numRows with the result. When we call MySQL numRows with the result, what that is doing is counting how many rows did the SQL query actually return. Okay? So we're going to have to worry about what's in the rows that the SQL query returned, and we're going to have to, but before we do that, before we worry about what's actually in the rows, we've got to figure out how many rows came back, right? So that MySQL numRows counts the number of rows and gives us $numRows. Okay? Then we create an appropriate message. We say if numRows is 0, then our message is there were no teaching assignments. Nobody's got assigned to teach anything. College is shut down. Okay? But that's unlikely to happen. So, we would have set that message if numRows was 0. Otherwise, message would still be an empty string, right? Whatever happens, whether the message is an empty string or not, we call this method show all teaching assignments with message and note with the result that we got back from MySQL query. We pass that on to that method, to that function. Okay? So where is show all teaching assignments? Is it in this file? Show all teaching assignments? No, it is not in this file. Okay? So that means it is in this file, allteachingassignments.inc. It's in there. Okay? You get it? So we we're going to go and look at this all teaching assignments UI.inc file, which contains this function. But before I actually show you the details of that function, I'm going to show you that I call this method MySQL free result. That is something you should do as a good PHP citizen, because when you executed an SQL query that might give you 1,000 rows, that result that comes back is going to be pretty bulky. And after completing this function, show all teaching assignments, you've done everything with that result you wanted, right? You've shown it to the user. You've sent it back to the user. So after that HTML that this function generated is sent back to the user, all we have to do is dump that result, clear it, so that it returns to the heap space in memory and your server doesn't run out of memory. Okay?
Database uses a heap? Why don't I
No,
remember
the database doesn't use the heap. It is your PHP that got the result from the database, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the PHP had a huge data structure
Gotcha.
with your result.
Thank you.
Now you use that data structure in this function to display a table. But once that table is displayed, that result is no good to you. So you are freeing it. And it's available in the heap of memory for others to use. So your server doesn't run out of memory. So where is show all teaching assignments? Let's look at all teaching assignments. This file just contains one function, show all teaching assignments, with message and result. Now, I'm not sure why this is showing as a comment. I may have a syntax error somewhere. No, that didn't do any good. But basically, look at what this function is doing. It's echoing HTML, head, end head, body, and so on, right? So it's printing out HTML. That's the intention of this function. It is to generate a response back to the user, which is in the form of HTML. So HTML, head, end head, body. Once you are in the body, what you are doing is you are looking at the message that came in. If it is defined, in other words, if it is not null. Okay, somebody?
It was just closing.
Somebody being a pain.
One haunted Hartwell is coming here.
Well, if we do have a ghost, let's hope it can write PHP for all. So, alright. So if message is actually defined and it is not the empty string, then we are going to print it out, right? How do we print it out? Well, we will try and center it. Now you can center it with CSS. That's the recommended way of doing it. It's an awful lot of work, actually, to do it with CSS. So I usually cheat, and I use the center tag, which they have deprecated. Browsers, as I said, are very forgiving. They try to be backwards compatible. And hopefully they will always be, so I can do that. But you can do it with CSS if you want. Okay. So I echo center, font color blue. Then look at what I did. I ended the string, right? So my PHP string was in single quotes. Why did I not use double quotes for the string? Because I had color blue, I used double quotes here, which is what HTML prefers. Right? So because the contents of my string contain double quotes, I put the string itself in single quotes. But if the string is in single quotes, it won't be interpolated. Well, too bad. That's fine with me. I use the concatenation operator to actually put the message that is going to be in this, within this font tag. Then I concatenate message with end font, end center, break. And that's it. So basically, I'm trying to display the message in blue. That's what you get. Okay? Now, once I have done that, now begins the real thing. Now I'm trying to print the table. So I echo a table border of 1, aligned in the center with 98%. The table header width 20%, last name. Table header, first name 20%, discipline 10%, course title 50%. By this, I am creating a table not with uniformly sized columns, but with different widths. Okay? So I have begun the creation of a table, and I have put a header in there. Okay? So I did table head and table head. I wonder if I have a bug in it, whether this echo table head should be there. And then we have table body. Now in the table body, I'm basically going to be putting up the rows. But where do the rows come from? The rows come from the database result. How do I actually access that result? The key thing is I have to note this method. MySQL fetch ASOC result. That function, MySQL fetch ASOC, you've got to use exactly as is. Okay? Now what does MySQL fetch ASOC do? What it does is this. It expects the result to be an associative array. In other words, an array with key value pairs in it. Which is what we said PHP arrays look like, right? Remember that PHP arrays? They were associative arrays with key value pairs. Each element of the array had a key and a value, right? If you were doing a traditional array in PHP, it was still a key value pair, except that the keys were 0, 1, 2, 3, the traditional keys, indexes. Okay? But otherwise, it was an associative array with key value pairs, right? So what are the key value pairs? Well, let's go to retrieve all assignments. And in retrieve all assignments, we said select last name, first name, discipline, course title. Right? So we expect the select query to give us last name, first name, discipline, course title, right? Would I be right if I said that the select query will give us many rows, and in each row, the columns we will have are last name, first name, discipline, course title? Yes. Right? The select query will give us many rows, and in each row, we will have those 4 columns, right? Now, when that data structure generated by the database, that many rows with these columns, when that gets transferred onto the PHP side, what happens is that PHP considers each row to be an associative array with keys, last name, first name, discipline, course title. In other words, whatever was in the select query. Okay? Each row of the database table is an associative array with the keys, last name, first name, discipline, course title. And the values that you pull out of the rows will be the actual data. So, last name will be, let's say, Low, first name will be Alex, discipline will be CSE, course title, let's say Alex is teaching, we won't teach Alex software engineering, and that's not going to be the course title. The next row, you're doing MySQL fetch assoc result into row each time you go through the while loop. The first time, the first row that you get out of the result goes into row is Alex teaching software engineering. The second time you go through the loop, the second row you get is Mike Clark teaching computer networks. The third time we go through the row, we will have Adam Smith teaching data structures. All of that. So the appropriate data will come back into these variables, last name, first name, discipline, course title. See that? And then, what we do is, we output these variables in a table row. Table row, each table data item in the row puts in last name, first name, discipline, course title. So this is one table row with 4 table cells, and in each cell we put last name, first name, discipline, course title. And then after that we do end table body, end table, and then we use this echo up to end format to actually display other HTML code that just ends off the HTML document that we are creating. That's sent back to the user. Okay? Now the question is, what is this HTML entities? Why do we use this HTML entities? Okay? Now, whenever funny things happen in this date and time of Google, the best thing to do is Google for it. Convert all characters to HTML entities. Does that make any sense to you? No?
Didn't you say that we were going to have the either the database or the PHP create the table so we didn't have to write the HTML?
So, this is what does that. Remember that if you have a string that you got from the database, let's say, okay? So for example, the string that we got from the database for course title was data structures and algorithms. That's how they entered it. That's what we got from the database, right? Now that's what we want to display in HTML in the table. But the and symbol, the ampersand, is a special character the and symbol is a special character in HTML. You cannot just write and if you were writing this string in HTML. You would have to do something like that to actually show the and symbol in HTML. That's what you have to do if you're doing it manually. Well, HTML entities does that automatically. What exactly happened over there? That's what HTML entities does. And that is what the W3 Schools page on that is showing you. Okay? So this brings me back to my comment that I have made several times in this class. You have got to learn on your own a lot of things by Googling and so on. That's what it's going to be. HTML entities is one function, does something specific. As you tackle your term project, you might find a lot of issues rising. One way to do that would be Google for it. Look in Stack Overflow, somebody's going to give you an answer. And try that. That is what the life of a software developer is. And you've got to begin practicing that right away. Okay? So this HTML displayed a table, and at the end it had a button that took you back to the first page, teachoptions.html, which was the 4 buttons that we were working. Okay? Now, with this basic PHP example, I believe you can get started with the term project. So, what we'll be doing in class henceforth is that some of the class time will be reserved for the teams to meet and work on the term project. For the rest of the time, I'll be going through and giving a little tidbits about programming with PHP. That will probably be useful to you as we go through the term project. But the main focus from now is actually you program the term project as a team. It is that programming experience that is actually going to enable you to learn something. Whatever you take away from this class is going to come through that exercise and the doing of it. Okay? So lecturing is going to be at a minimum. I'm pretty sure that much of what I say doesn't stay, but what you do is going to stay. Your second quiz and the final exam will be requiring you to write PHP code of the kind that we have just seen. And it will be open book again. So it's important to practice that. In addition to this, in addition to PHP tidbits for the rest of the semester, and I'm not going to claim that I'm going to give you all the tidbits that you need. There is a major PHP project that we had done with students back in 2010, something that we use to record certain assessment data in our departmental assessment database. And that code is also available on Blackboard under the CSC CIS exit in. And I might, as I give you tidbits, be looking at that code to help you out. But in the course of the term project, which will actually go until the very end of the semester, the last day that Josh Swanson of Aptaris will be coming to see your final demo will be the last day of class, which is December 8th. That will be your final demo. Okay? That will go through the rest of the semester. And in the course of that period, you should be able to, or you should get comfortable with reading other people's PHP code as well. Understanding what they did and replicating it. And of course, I will be, that's why I'm giving you class time for it, so I can take questions while you might be struggling with it. In addition to PHP, in bits, we will be considering a few web security issues. And there will be another major web-related topic that we will be talking about, and that is XML and XSLT. So other than web security and XML and XSLT, it's mostly programming in PHP and making it work on the web. Does everyone follow that? Phase 1 of the term project. The term project is in here. The project description is here. You've got to set up a database for it. Data that is set over here. You've got to, I suggest now, you begin looking at it. The features you have to show in phase 1 is register a vendor, modify, delete a vendor, add, modify, delete store locations, add, modify, delete an item that the grocery store stocks in its stores. And then we will see how much of this you can actually get through. Okay? So you've already seen add, modify, delete. You've seen how to do an insert. You've seen how to do a select. See how you can work with that. So, there's add, modify, delete customer also. So let's see how far we can get with that. Phase 2 will be create a new order, add items to existing order, and view orders. And then phase 3 will be whatever we can do of the rest. Okay? So phase 1 will tentatively be somewhere around the end of October, Halloween time. Okay? Phase 2 will be around Thanksgiving time. Phase 3 will be last week. Anyone good? Everyone good with that? So, in the remaining time, I need to see some demos. But otherwise, I suggest the teams get together